Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tacchayoravriணிமஹே Gatun Yagyaya Gatun Yagyapataye Daivi Swastirastu Nah Swastirmanushebyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipade Shanchatushpade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Today we are continuing with the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. We have covered up till the 15th shloka in the earlier session. So today we will be doing 3 shlokas, 16, 17 and 18. So a quick recap. In the next 2 or 3 slides, I'll sort of summarize the kind of things that we have discussed so that we have a clear background for doing these 3 shlokas for today. So the focus of the first 15 shlokas in the 4th chapter has been on Sri Bhagavan revealing his identity first and saying that I am not of the same nature as the Jivatma in samsara. The Jivatma is bound in samsara because of these things, Ichha and Dvesha. So in the 7th chapter of the Gita, he says, Ichha Dvesha Samuttena Dvandva Mohena Bharata Sarva Bhutani Sammoham Sarge Yanti Parantapa. So these 2 factors, since eternal time, the Jivatma has been afflicted by the desire to enjoy this world and make himself happy with that sense enjoyment. And on the other hand, promoting hatred towards others or nurturing hatred towards others. When there is misery for others, there is happiness for oneself. When there is happiness for others, there is misery for oneself. This is Dvesha. So Ichha and Dvesha bind us in this samsara. This is called material existence. And how does the binding happen? It happens through Prakriti. Prakriti has what are called the 3 gunas. And guna in Sanskrit means a rope, a binding rope. So these gunas, sattva guna, raja guna, tamo guna, they bind us to this samsara. Okay, how they bind us, we will discuss in a future class in detail. And why, compared to the 3, sattva is the best. Okay, then what happens? Because of the influence of 3 gunas, the reason why we act, our karma, the karma that we do, is motivated by the returns that we want from it, like punya. So different types of returns are, one is punya, that's the basic return. And then artha and kama, very specific returns. I want something like a house. So I do a yajna because by performance of yajna, that particular fruit, like getting a big house or getting a lot of wealth or winning a kingdom, these things will be achieved. So because of this mentality, this attraction that we have to the material nature, we are smeared by karma. Okay, smeared means that karma sticks to us. Just like, if we apply glue on something, that glue sticks to it, and then you can stick an object to another object with that glue. So our karma sticks to us wherever we go. When I say wherever we go, when we go from one body to another body, birth after birth, this karma carries us across different bodies. And this extends our material existence. So this is samsara. Now, how is Sri Bhagavan different from us? If you do a one-to-one comparison, first of all, Sri Bhagavan does not have this Ichha and Dvesha in him. He is completely free from Ichha for himself and Dvesha towards others. Okay, so that is his nature. And therefore, he is not bound by samsara. The Prakriti does not bind him. Ichha and Dvesha are the reason why we are bound. He doesn't have it, so he is not bound by Prakriti. And therefore, his own karma, when he comes here, for example, as a Kshatriya in front of us, he takes birth as Krishna or as Rama or something, and he performs different types of karma. And the karma that he performs he is not motivated by punya, artha, kama, etc. It's completely beyond that. He is in perfection of yoga. His mentality is perfection of yoga. And therefore he says, I am not smeared by the karma. In the earlier shloka, we will now revise that shloka too. And his actions, when he performs any action, whether he does something that is dharmic or he does something that appears to be adharmic, he never crosses the boundary of dharma. He's always following dharma. His actions don't lead to any punya or papa. It is beyond that. It's beyond punya and papa. So we also touched upon specific terms. Okay, so I will just quickly revise those terms because we'll use those terms again and again as we learn more concepts in the Gita. The first term that we need to learn when we talk about karma yoga is phalakangsha, phalasya akanksha, or phaleshu akanksha, means the desire for the returns that come from karma, that is phalakangsha. The term which contrasts with this is mumuksha, means instead of phalakangsha, if we choose to desire for mukti, right? Muktehe icha, or you can say muktim gantum icha, muktim praptum icha, to get mukti. That is called mumuksha. That's the Sanskrit word that is commonly used in Vedanta philosophy. Mumuksha is considered the virtue of a person who is following Vedanta. Nirakanksha. Nirakanksha is the opposite of phalakangsha. That is a person who can do his karma without hankering for the fruits. He is not motivated by the fruits. Nirakanksha. Chitta Shuddhi. So Chitta Shuddhi refers to the process or the goal of purification of the consciousness. The consciousness free from what? Free from the roots, the root defects in us, the defects of Ichcha and Dvesha. Overcoming that, becoming free and getting ourselves rid of that Ichcha and Dvesha is the process of Chitta Shuddhi, or the process of yoga by which Chitta Shuddhi outcome happens. Naishkarmya. Naishkarmya, as Chitta Shuddhi happens, as one becomes more and more free from Ichcha and Dvesha by a practice of yoga with the proper mentality. Okay, how that happens, we are going to discuss, and that's all the Gita is all about that. So as this happens, eventually we reach a stage when our mind is completely pure, mind is very calm. It says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam, second chapter shloka. Towards the end, Sri Bhagavan says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam, samudramapaha pravishanti yadvat. Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve, sa shantim apnoti na kamakami. That is one whose mind has reached a stage of purification, wherein even though so many thoughts may come, because the mind is material in nature, thoughts will keep coming. So even though thoughts keep coming abundantly, he's completely undisturbed. He's just like a man, he's just like the ocean into which so many rivers are flowing, right? If you take any ocean from the land surrounding that ocean, so many rivers are flowing, streams are flowing into it continuously. They are pouring millions of tons of water every second. But the ocean's level doesn't go up or doesn't go down. It's always the same. Its behavior continues to be the same. It's producing waves. It has its tidal phenomena going up and down when the tides, the high tide, low tide. The ocean is undisturbed by the numerous rivers which flow into it. So the mind of a person who has reached the stage of Chitta Shuddhi, who's perfected Chitta Shuddhi, is the stage where he doesn't get disturbed. Any thought which comes, which may have disturbed him earlier, a thought of a desire, he just becomes a witness of that desire. It doesn't disturb him anymore. He focuses on his work and he's very calm. And because of that calmness, Sa Shantim Apnoti, he obtains that Shanti. His mind is very peaceful. Even in the most disturbing situation, okay, what can normally disturb anyone in a very bad way, such a person will remain very calm and undisturbed. He will handle that situation in a very calm and undisturbed manner. Okay, so if we are able to do this in our normal life, then imagine how good we can be in society, in whatever we do. Like, some of us are going to become faculty members in future. Some of us are going to become maybe managers, corporate leaders. Whatever we are, whatever the duty is, we can handle it much better in that state of mind than otherwise, right? Than if our mind is disturbed by so many things that go around it. So Naishkarmya is that state when Chitta Shuddhi has happened, to a very good extent. And when that happens, Sri Bhagavan says, then one is free from the obligation to do karma. The obligation to do karma is removed from that person. So that person then does karma only because it's a matter of duty. It is there in the Shastra. I respect the Shastra. I want to act in accordance with Dharma, and I continue to do my karma. And in that state, he will neither obtain punya nor papa, because he doesn't desire punya. So this is called naishkarmya. And another word for naishkarmya is nirveda. Nirveda is also used very often. Nirveda basically means, it refers to the same state, but the meaning of that word is that one becomes indifferent to the samanya dharma that's described in the Veda. So as it was described in the second chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, the predominant topic of the Veda is samanya dharma, which is teaching us, Veda tells us how to be happy in material existence by doing different types of yajnas. Karma and yajna are synonymous, are one. So by doing yajna through our karma, we get punya. So the predominant topic of the Veda is how to obtain punya and be happy. Keep on accumulating punya and keep having a better existence. Nirveda means becoming indifferent to that. Saying that, no, I don't want punya also, I want to go beyond it. And that's the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita tells us to, in that sense, the Bhagavad Gita rejects the Veda. Okay, when I say reject the Veda, I don't mean disrespects the Veda. The Veda is dharma mula. So Veda is never to be disrespected. But within the Veda, there's a hierarchy of the levels of things that you can achieve through the Veda. So Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita is Vedanta. It says the rest of the Veda is not for me. It is something that I reject. I go for Vedanta, pure knowledge. So Nirveda is the state of Chitta Shuddhi, which is synonymous with Naishkarmya, where one becomes completely indifferent to all that. You follow? So in the second chapter, towards the end, from around the 50th shloka onwards, Sri Bhagavan points to these things and discusses. We have discussed this, and we can again discuss this in detail.
So, just Naishkarmya is the name of forest or
that is Naimisharanya. I'm confusing with them. Yeah. Naishkarmya is from Nishkama. Nishkama karma. Naishkarmya. The word comes like that. Okay, now what are we seeing here? So this is the map we have seen before, which shows the broad landscape of dharma in a kind of a high level overview. Dharma basically is samanya dharma and paro dharma, right? So whatever we have been discussing now in this session, you can see how it fits here. Samanya dharma, as given in the Veda, involves performance of nitya-naimittika karma or kamya karma. Nitya-naimittika karma is routine activities. Kamya karma is specific activities to achieve specific objectives. Nitya-naimittika karma is also called as samanya dharma. The word dharma is used and it's aimed at accruing punya. And kamya karma for artha and kama. Now when we reject that, we go to paro dharma. Paro dharma is the topic of yoga. When we say yoga, what we mean is not asanas. That is commonly today's society, we talk about yoga as a set of asanas and breathing and so on. We don't mean just that. Yoga means connecting with Sri Bhagavan. And in the Bhagavad Gita, very broadly speaking, two paths are given, two distinct paths. One is what I have termed as karma jnana yoga, because it is pointed out in the Gita, at least in 2 or 3 places, and also in the discussion, that both are actually the same. Karma yoga and jnana yoga are two names of the same path. And I'm calling it as karma jnana yoga. Okay. So why that same path has two different names? One of the names comes from the emphasis on doing your duties without detachment without phalakangsha. And the reason the name Jnana Yoga comes is because the goal of doing that is to get jnana, spiritual knowledge, pure knowledge. So that's why both names are used. And Karma Jnana Yoga is Varnashrama based. It is based on our identity as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, which is the Varna of the Varnashrama system. So within Varnashrama, if somebody is living, if you see how Varnashrama is designed, it is designed for people with a certain level of spiritual maturity, with punya in the past. Even as a Shudra, if you are to be born, you need a certain level of Shudra, because even a Shudra, as compared to what we see today, is very pure, very disciplined. Forget about Brahmana. Brahmana is much more disciplined than the Shudra. Is supposed to be, expected to be, in his mind, mental control, and so on. So even before, when Varnashrama was running, okay, today Varnashrama is not running the way it was running before, right? It exists in a very shadow kind of form. So even let's say in the earlier yugas like Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, when it was running, majority of the human population is not part of Varnashrama because the human beings exist not only as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, but also as say tribals, as so many other in so many other forms, in so many other lands outside this land known as Bharatavarsha, where they are just living in whatever natural way that occurs to them. If you go, for example, to a tribal village, they have developed their own samskriti. They have their own culture, right? They may not believe in the kind of things we do, but they have developed their ethics, their values, and so on, and they live in a happy way. So that is outside of Varnashrama. The majority of the population is outside of Varnashrama, even in a society when Varnashrama is existing, even in the earlier times. Varnashrama is a small subset of people, and that's why some people translate, if you see some translations in English of Varnashrama, say civilized society. The tribals and others are considered to be, compared to this, uncivilized because they don't follow the niyams of the Veda. Varnashrama people follow the Veda very strictly. All of them, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra also. They follow all the niyam carefully, right? Yes.
But either ways, even if it's let's say not part of a civilized system, if they're still part of the tribal culture, they're still doing duties which may fall within the brackets of these varnas, right? So does that maybe ascribe them to one of those specific varnas?
No, they still won't be assigned to Varna because their Shraddha is not in the Shastra. They are not following Shastra. It's just like in today's society. Today's society, majority of population doesn't even know about Shastra, even in India. What do? They develop their own ethics. For example, we study ethics it's not based on the Veda, but it's based on common sense that, this is wrong, this is right, there is morality. So we have reasoned out using common sense that this is a right thing to do, this is a way to be. And we then derive laws. The government goes by laws. And law is supposed to be based on, has some connection with ethics, right? Right and wrong, sense of right and wrong comes from there. Now, this won't be considered as Varnashrama because Varnashrama is based on Veda, on the ethics of the Veda. And Veda says this is right, that is right. If it is not right, it is not right, as per the Veda. Right? So that is Shruti. So that is where Punya Papa comes from, because Veda is given by Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the one who is the source of this universe, this world. Veda comes from him. And the laws of Dharma come from him. Right? Dharmasya Tattvam Bhagavad Pranitam, this said. So it will not be called Varnashrama. It's good. I'm not saying it is bad. Just because it's not Varnashrama, I'm not saying it is bad. I'm saying it is good, but it's not Varnashrama. You should know that.
But so in that sense, they might still be moving towards, let's say, Sri Bhagavan or whatever they perhaps are moving towards.
Yes.
But
yes.
Suppose they're moving towards Sri Bhagavan itself, but through another approach. So those approaches still exist. There's no one definite way of.
Yes. That's where Bhakti Yoga comes in. So Bhakti Yoga is the alternative. It is not Varnashrama based. Right? Bhakti Yoga is when you directly approach Bhagavan, but that is when you have that Shraddha. You develop the Shraddha that there is Bhagavan and he is like this, his nature is like this. And I want to develop that nature. I want to do things which make him happy. Bhakti is about ekata and anukulata with Bhagavan. Ekata means that oneness, that he belongs to me, I belong to him. And I should never do anything which displeases him. I'm not able to follow my Varnashrama, or I want to do things which are even more pleasing to him than Varnashrama. So in the Bhagavatam actually rejects Varnashrama. Bhagavatam goes beyond Varnashrama. It points out that Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti, is a superior thing. It is more pleasing to Bhagavan than just following your Varnashrama duties. So following Varnashrama is pleasing to him because he is the one who sets it up. So in following Varnashrama, you are like a good citizen. What is a good citizen? A citizen who follows all the laws, pays all his taxes, etc., doesn't break anything, and is also good to others, goes beyond his role, he does extra role behavior and helps others. He's a good citizen, right? He's rewarded by society. He gets Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, etc., right? So if you follow Varnashrama strictly, identifying with your Varna, then you will be a good citizen in the eyes of Bhagavan, and he will reward you with punya. But when you say that, okay, even beyond Varnashrama, there are activities which he likes very much. he immediately gives you Chitta Shuddhi when you connect with him. So Chitta Shuddhi doesn't depend on the Karma Yoga process. In Bhakti Yoga, there is no requirement of Varna. So even a tribal, anybody can approach Bhagavan with that Shraddha. And you see so many examples of that in the Puranas, where the person is not belonging to any of the Varnas, but he approaches Bhagavan. There are so many stories. In the story of Jagannath of Puri, you'll find that how that deity of Jagannath was formed if you go back to the roots of the story. I won't go into the story today, but it begins with King Indradyumna, who is a king, I think, somewhere in Madhya Pradesh, King Indradyumna. So he has some knowledge that there is somebody called Neela Madhava. There is a form of Vishnu called Neela Madhava living in this today, what we call as Puri. And he sends a Brahmana there to try to bring that deity here, or try to at least know where it is and find that deity. And when he goes there, he finds that this deity actually is worshipped by a tribal king who doesn't belong to any of the Varnas. And the tribal king is a Shuddha Bhakta, means he's developed so much bond with that deity that he is afraid that somebody will come and take it away one day. So he has hidden that deity in a forest. The deity is in a forest, Nilamadava. And he doesn't allow anyone to go there. And he quietly goes, worships that Nilamadava and comes back. So this story goes that this Brahmana who comes from Indradumna's palace eventually ends up becoming his son-in-law. He marries the girl, the daughter of this tribal. And he plays a trick on his father-in-law. I think that before he becomes a father-in-law, he uses some mustard seeds or something, and then he finds the way. So this tribal king, he takes him to that deity, and the Brahmana, he drops some seeds in the way so that he can find the path later on. But eventually, when he finds that Nilamadava disappears from there, he says that I will come in another form, and he vanishes, and then he appears as Jagannath. So there's a whole story about how that happens. King Indradyumna gets a drishti and Vishwakarma gets involved. He starts carving the deities, and then the deity eventually appears as Jagannath. So that's a very famous story. So the point I made the story now was to say that you don't have to be in the Varna to be a Bhakta, to do Bhakti Yoga. Yes, sir.
So if you are following the Varnashrama system, so apart from the four Varnas, there are also four stages of life for any person. So
yeah, that's the Ashrama part of it, yes.
So Brahmacharya, Grahastha,
Vanaprastha, Sannyasa.
then Sannyasa. So sir, is it necessary that if I want to go on the spiritual path, then being a Brahmacharya and then a Grahastha is a prerequisite? That is, I must first indulge in all the material activities, then only I'll be able to transcend those.
No, it's not a prerequisite. Especially if you're following bhakti. Now, in the Varnashrama system, yes, if you're following the path of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, then yes, then you are supposed to go through all the ashramas. Typically, yes, but some people say that if your development is so high, then from being a brahmachari, you can become a sannyasi directly. Of course, we should also know that the four ashramas don't apply to all the four varnas.
Okay.
The brahmana goes through all the four ashramas: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. Kshatriya goes through only the first three: brahmana, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha. The Vaishya goes through only the first two: brahmacharya and grihastha. He doesn't have vanaprastha and sannyasa. And the Shudra has only one, that is grihastha. There is no brahmacharya for the Shudra. He goes through only the second one. Means the first stage before his marriage, he is not considered as a brahmachari. Brahmachari means what? Brahmachari means he gets diksha from his guru. He stays in a gurukul. He studies shastra. So the first three varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they have the Upanayanam, they have the thread, right? They get mantra, and they are supposed to do japa of that mantra, and then they live with the guru. They study some shastra. The Brahmana will study the Veda. The other two, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they may not study Veda, but some shastra is taught to them, like Dhanur Veda for the Kshatriya. Some shastra is taught, and they learn systematically. They are also developed. They have some level of intellectual development, though it may not be what the Brahmana has. The Shudra doesn't have any of that. The Shudra is only paricharya. Means his role is to play a support service for the other three varnas. Right?
So, sir, on a related but a lighter note, so whatever we are learning from you, so since we are all in the brahmacharya stage, so does that mean all of your teachings will not be as effective as right now? as compared to if maybe say later 50 years down the line or something like that?
Well, the Bhagavad-Gita, after teaching all this, eventually points and says that only bhakti yoga should be practiced. Effectively, it says that karma yoga, jnana yoga path, you can know what it is, understand what it is, and what its objective is. But in today's society, in the Kali Yuga, it is impractical to follow. It's really impractical. You can talk about it, learn the values of karma yoga, jnana yoga. It is bhakti which is practical. And that is why all the acharyas, including Shankara, in his Bhajagovindam song, he brings the point to bhakti. Although even though he talked about the importance of varnashrama, because it's very difficult to, people who are dharmic, it's very difficult to break the varnashrama mold. I mean, the paradigm is so strong in the dharmic society that to say that, okay, you're a brahmana, but stop doing your brahmana duties and only do bhakti, it is very difficult to accept that. So if you see all the major acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, they've all spoken in the context of varnashrama. And then they also pointed out that bhakti is the process to follow. Bhakti is a process through which you will get Atma Gyan in the Kali Yuga. Only Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he completely came out of varnashrama. He said only Harinam. So Shastra also says Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Iva Kevalam. In Kali Yuga, Kalau Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva Gatiranyata. So therefore, even now, even at this age, we can do bhakti. Bhakti can be done at any age by anybody of any varna or avarna, not part of any varna. Bhakti is the one that sees samatva in perfection. There is no discrimination in bhakti. Everybody is the same. There's not even today we talk about, for example, Hindu Muslim also. That is not there in bhakti. There's no religion. There's only the Jivatma and Bhagavan. That's all. That. So in you'll see many of the leelas, like in Ramanuja's story or in Chaitanya's story, you'll see Muslims getting bhakti. Like in Ramanuja's leela, there's a very beautiful story. I'll just say it in summary. In the Melukote temple, there's a place called Melukote in Karnataka near Bangalore. And that's one of the temples where Ramanuja, he stayed in Melukote and established. So there's one beautiful temple of a deity called as Tirunarayana, that is, it's a Narayana form. The specific name of the deity is, I think, Sri. No, he's a standing.
Teluva Narayana.
Teluva Narayana, yes. Thank you. Teluva Narayana deity is very beautiful. Teluva Narayana means very beautiful Narayana. It's very sweet to look at. Now, in that same temple, there's a story of another deity called Sampat Kumara. There was a deity which they were worshipping, deity of Vishnu. So at that time, the Muslim rule had begun in India. It was around 1100 AD. Muslims had just come in. This is before I think even Babar, before these 6 people, Babar, Humayun. So this Muslim king, he was, going around India and trying to destroy temples, as all of them did. Destroy temples and steal the deities and go and so on. So this guy, this Muslim king, he came all the way down to Melkote and he took away deities from there. So many beautiful deities of Vishnu were there. So he took away many of them and he took them to Delhi. His capital was in Delhi, right? So he took them to Delhi. And so one of the deities, so Ramanuja, when Ramanuja came, so one of his objectives was to get back as many deities as possible. It's like even today, the governments in India, some of them are trying to restore temples, etc. So this was an old thing. Whatever Muslims tried to undo, we tried to redo and establish back. So when Ramanuja goes to this king's place, this Muslim king's place, the king receives him. And because Ramanuja is a very established scholar, he's known for his scholarliness. So many of these Muslim kings, they also, even though they tried to establish Islam, they also treated our intellectuals with some respect and they gave them some dignity and they allowed them to come to the court and speak. Particularly some of the kings like Akbar, did even more. So this Muslim king, he receives Ramanuja and his entourage and respects him and he gives him. And he says, what can I do for you? So Ramanuja says, I just want one thing. So the deity of Sampat Kumar that you have taken, please give it back to me. I want to take him back to Melkote. So he says that, you can go to the room. So he points to some room and see. And Ramanuja goes there, he sees all the deities. And then he tells him that, see, this particular deity, my daughter has become very attached to. I cannot easily give it to you. So they do some plan, and they, through some trickery, what happens is they take that deity, Ramanuja, and I don't remember the exact details, but Ramanuja and his consorts, the 2, 3 people who are walking with him, because those days all walking. So they take the deity and they start walking towards Melkote when the king is not there or something, and they just start walking. They say we have to walk very fast because soon they will find out that the deity is missing. And because of the daughter's love for the deity, even though the king is willing to give, but the daughter may go to her father and say, I want the deity back. So then the king will send his soldiers. So he, anticipating all that, they start moving fast. And that's exactly what happens. When the daughter comes there, when the small girl, so she sees that that deity is missing, and she says, where is my Sampat Kumar? I can't live without him. So she's become so attached to him. And so she says, we'll follow. So she starts following. She says, I don't want to wait for soldier or anything. So she starts going on that path. She finds out where she goes alone. She's so attached to him. So she goes alone. And the story goes that even as she's following these people, there's one guy who is in love with this girl, one other guy in the kingdom, some young guy. She's not a small girl. She's somewhere, maybe her teenage girl or something. So she's in that age where romance and things like it happen. So there's a guy who is in love, badly in love with this girl and wants to marry her in future. So he says that she is left, so I also can't live without her. He's not attached to the deity, but he's attached to her. So he starts following her. And so there is this Ramanujan group going in the front, and then somewhere a few kilometers behind, there's this girl. And then a few more kilometers behind, there's this guy who is going behind. So there's a whole group going. And all of them are going towards Melkote, right? But Ramanuja and his group, they know, they anticipate that these things will happen. Somebody will be chasing us. They go very fast. And they reach Melkote successfully. Okay, so all the way from Delhi to Bangalore, near Bangalore. And they establish the deity there. They bring him back. This Utsava and is still there today. So they come back, and this girl, after a few days, reaches there. She finds her way. You can think that maybe Bhagavan guided her how to find the way. She finds the way, and she reaches there, and she just barges into the temple because she knows the deity is there in the temple. And she runs to the deity, and she sees the deity, and she's so much attached to it that she merges into the deity. She gets mukti. So this guy is coming behind. He's in love with her. So he comes there, and he sees her going inside. And then he goes inside and he understands what has happened. And he knows that she's gone. And through that process, he becomes purified. He develops bhakti to that deity. And it is said that then onwards, he started performing bhakti to that deity, to Vishnu. And he became so pure that he lived like a beggar, always thinking of Vishnu in his mind. And there's some story that he was once in Puri. He went to Puri as a mendicant, and he was sitting there, and he was eating some food. Somebody gave him some food, and suddenly one dog came, and the dog grabbed a part of that, maybe one roti or something, and ran away. And then immediately he got up and he said, Narayana, come back. He saw the dog as Narayana coming and taking that food. So he got up and then he ran behind the dog and said, please take the remaining. Why you took only one piece? Take all of it. It's for you. So he started seeing Narayana everywhere. That drishti he developed. So this is bhakti. The point of telling this story was only to point out that bhakti does not look at varna. There's no Brahmana, Kshatriya, Hindu, Muslim, nothing. It's only Jivatma and Bhagavan. That's it. Everything is body. The Brahmana, Kshatriya, Upadhi is all body. Muslim, Hindu, all is body. Right? So when it comes to Shastra Jnana, Atma Jnana, it is pure, absolutely pure.
Just want to add to what you said.
Okay.
Shailabhai is one more story where he's born of a ferocious Muslim commander who actually came to conquer Jagannath, but village headman gave his daughter to him, and the Shailabhai was there, and then he wrote the Bhakti Ahimsa Madhava, which is
Okay. This is from Odisha.
Yes, from Odisha. So he's a Muslim guy who became a Muslim Jagannath.
Right.
As you said, so Varna does not matter.
Yeah. And there is also the famous story of Sri Haridas Thakur, which I will tell in a future. Yeah. Okay, so we'll complete this map. So here, what are we seeing? We see that by doing parodharma, eventually we attain prema or moksha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the goal that is prescribed is moksha. Moksha is the predominant goal that's prescribed in the Gita. But even higher than moksha is prema. Prema means pure love to Sri Bhagavan. And the love that Sri Bhagavan has for others, for other jivatmas, that love is called prema. And the aspiration for that love is the prayojana, means is the goal. And I want to get that same love that he has for everybody else. And living with that love is considered to be even higher than the state of moksha. Because moksha is subsumed in that. Moksha comes automatically when one has that pure love. Okay, so this map is basically a high-level view of what Shastra is telling us, a very high-level view of Dharma.
Sir, I had one question. In the previous slide, you were also talking about chitta shuddhi, right?
Yes.
So is that similar to the principle of stoicism, where you are actually finding a balance and you're not swayed away by the extremes? So like you said that there the person is not deterred when they're happy, they're not extremely happy, and when the situation is pretty gloomy, they're not extremely sad. So they're trying to like get themselves detached from that situation. So isn't it similar to the idea of being stoic?
In that sense, it is similar, but in being stoic, what is the motivation? What makes them stoic? What is it that makes a person like that? Tell me. Then I will tell you whether it's exactly the same or not.
Not very sure about it. I just thought that it's just finding a balance. It's maybe because it's somewhat related to cynicism also, is it?
Maybe, yeah. So what you're saying is people who are very cynical, who have a very cynical view of this world, they also develop this view that I don't care if something is very successful or something is very good, I won't be very happy about it. If something is very bad, again, I'm not be very depressed about it. I'm like indifferent to all of it. Now, that is not what is said here. This indifference which we are talking about is indifference coming out of genuine knowledge. It's out of the genuine perception of reality, of true knowledge of oneself as the jivatma, which is different from this world. You see, you're able to go above this world. Do you follow what I'm saying? You're no longer in that ocean in your consciousness. In your consciousness, you're above this. You become a witness of this world. You see the world as something that's happening, which is not in your control, which goes in its own way, and you are just inside it for some time. You become a witness. So with that knowledge, when that knowledge becomes genuine, it's not merely theoretical. Right now, we are talking about it theoretical, right? We know the theory. It's there in the Gita. Anybody can read it. It's there, theoretically available. But by the practice of yoga, by the practice of these meditation and different practices, eventually the realization, you're able to see it. You're able to actually experience it within. Right? You're able to see the truth from inside. And in that state of truth, that indifference automatically comes. And balance comes. So it's not out of cynicism.
Okay.
So one of the things, just to add to that, maybe, and Prof, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was actually looking into this a few months back when I also came across being stoic and being sthita-prajna when we were going through that. And that's when I was, and that's when I realized that stoicism was a lot about being, it focused on the detachment. Whereas sthita-prajna says that, okay, you should be involved in things, yet be not connected to the fruits, where it's like, I'm unattached to the result. But once I've given the exam, I'm not thinking, okay, hey God, give me great marks, that kind of a thing. But I give the exam with 100% hard work and determination, as well as when I'm studying for the best. Whereas stoicism comes where it's like, I'll study, even if it's an exam, I'll study, even if it's not an exam, I'll study, even if it's nothing, because studying is my current purpose. that kind of a thing. So I think the idea is the sthita pragyata is more connected to like what's the need, like also understanding the environment a little more is what I understood from my limited research.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Arnav.
So I had a question.
Sarthak, yeah.
So you talked about this story wherein that Muslim guy that he falls in love with God and actually then he develops that lens wherein he is actually able to see that everything is nothing but only the manifestation of the Lord Almighty Himself.
Yes.
But sir, when you do this, when you are actually viewing everyone as Almighty, or when you are yourself also identifying one with, so when you are in what's written pure love with the God, then you start acting indifferently towards the world, like Mirabai was in pure love with God.
Yes.
So now what happens is, sir, that if I talk about even Saint Tukaram, when I think if you have that sense of identity, I think it helps you to involve yourself in the business or the transactions of this world, worldly transactions, because you have a family for yourself. And in that example, he saw that he saw Narayana in that dog.
Yes.
So he offered his complete food to himself.
Yes.
But if I have a family to take care of and I have some close ones to take care of, then in that case, this sense of I or this sense of me versus others and not Narayana, it helps me make a boundary around so that I can gather some resources for my loved ones so that they can also progress in this materialistic world. So how do we look at this trade-off?
How do you reconcile?
Mhm.
So the reconciliation in bhakti, what happens is it's very simple because you see your family also as part of Narayan. You see it as a responsibility. Now, Shri Bhagavan, what does he expect? See, I said bhakti has guided by just two core values, ekata and anukulata, right? Now, if Bhagavan was in my shoes, what would he do? So yes, now he has given me this wife, this child, or these children, and my parents, etc. And he would be very happy if I took care of them. He expects me to take care of them. What did the Pandavas do? So this morning I was telling you the Pandavas were very dear to him. He liked them very much. What did they do? They took care of their mother. They took care of their wife, right? So they had a strong sense of responsibility, but responsibility was connected to their understanding of Bhagavan, that it will be very pleasing to him as a matter of duty.
Then how do you distinguish a boundary that okay, he is also Bhagwan and my family is also Bhagwan? So
yeah, but because
in
in society you have a role to play. It's just like you're given a role in an organization. Let's take an analogy. In an organization, you're given some role. You're a manager of some division, right? Now, there are people in all divisions, but to your division people, you give more attention because it's part of your role, your responsibility, right? It's not that you're antagonistic to others. It's not that you don't care for others. It's not like that. It is just that you're expected to give more attention to the people in your division, assigning them their work, monitoring their work, evaluating their work, telling them right and wrong.
Even in pure love, it is possible that we have this sense of discrimination. Also
very much, very much. In fact, even better than you would have if you didn't have that love. Pure love is accompanied by pure knowledge. Atmagyan, the pure knowledge and sense of discrimination, is even better for a person who has that prema. So the sense of right and wrong, responsibility, and where he doesn't have to do anything, that sense becomes even better.
So that means all the marks complement each other rather than as
yes. So there's no trade-off. There's no trade-off. There is trade-off only in the initial stages when you have to draw boundaries very strictly. For example, you have to say that I will not do this. This is going to be harmful to the practice of sadhana that I have. So as a sadhaka, we have to be very careful in drawing boundaries. But as we progress and we learn things more and more, and our realization, internal maturity improves, then you don't see the need for any trade-off. You act responsibility in every situation. And that's why it is said that the person who's in the path of bhakti, uttama bhakti, there's a text called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which I will also cite later on as we get into bhakti, in the 7th chapter of Gita onwards. There, Jiva Goswami points out that a bhakta becomes very dear to everybody in society. He also has no enemy, means he doesn't develop any enemy, even to the person who insults him. And in turn, everybody likes him because his nature is something that people find very acceptable. People say that this guy is very easy to work with. He's very nice to interact with. He's not just nice for the sake of being nice, but he believes in, and his natural nature becomes that. He becomes like that. I'm sorry, you are having a question.
Yes, a follow-up question. So again, what I understood from it is basically it's your consciousness which keeps on increasing, through which you can see, Sri Narayana in different forms and things.
Yes.
But as your consciousness increases, it reaches out to more and more people and people closer to you. And that's when it goes to a point where you realize that the food, let's say you have, never belonged to you in the first place.
Yes.
And you're trying to give it to anyone and everyone. So that distinction sort of gets moved away.
Yes.
So that supreme consciousness is when there is no distinction between any one individual or being.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head.
You
Yes.
wouldn't care if it was, let's say, your family members or someone nearby, or is it a dog? But the person who comes and takes it, you believe is the one who deserves the.
No, that was only in that story.
Yeah.
But then when you live in society, you have a responsibility to handle. When Yudhishthira was the king of this country, he had a responsibility to behave like a king. He wouldn't behave like this person, although his consciousness might be the same as this person's consciousness, because he had a sense of responsibility. This person didn't have in this story. He was a mendicant. He became a mendicant after his beloved one went into that deity. He got purified also. And in that state, there was nothing. He didn't have a kingdom to rule. Yudhishthira had a kingdom to rule. So although he had that consciousness, he said, I have to fulfill these duties. So he drew those boundaries. Are you able to see what I'm saying?
Is this like a person realizing that, okay, I am an actor on this stage and this is what I am.
Similar to that, yes. As an actor, you have to perform certain roles, right? But you perform those roles in full knowledge. So when you have that knowledge, the pure knowledge, you don't lose your sense of discrimination. Depending on the role that you're in, you act according to that role. And that is why there is happiness. So you see your family member and a non-family member equally. There is no, even, in fact, our Samanya Dharma also is like that. Forget about Paro Dharma. Ayam nijaha paro veti, ganana lagu chetasam. There's a very beautiful shloka in the Niti. There's a Niti shloka. Ayam nijaha para veti means this person is mine or not mine. This is my person, this is not my person. This kind of thinking, ganana, this kind of thinking, lagu chetasam, is that thinking of small-minded people, narrow-minded people. Udara charitanam tu means for broad-minded people, or udara charita means a large-hearted person. Udara charitanam tu vasudha eva kutumbakam. Vasudha eva kutumbakam. Vasudha means this earth, Mother Earth. Vasudha, the whole earth is one family. Vasudha eva kutumbakam. This is not even parodharma. It is actually samanya dharma, right? So even in practice of samanya dharma, where we identify with our varna and so on, we think like this. Not to speak of parodharma. In parodharma, this becomes very natural. You don't even have to think of this shloka. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
Pooja, you comfortable? Okay. So this is, I think we had a very good discussion on this topic. Let me just move forward and see where we have, how much time we have today. Yeah, so I made this map just to show you how the 6 terms which I just discussed in the last slide, how do they fit in? Where do they fit into this map? So Phalakanksha would be here. It's associated with Samanya Dharma. And Mumuksha is the property of Parodharma. Mumukshus are people who aim for mukti. And the other 4 terms, they apply to the people on the path of Mumuksha. So Nirakanksha, Chitta Shuddhi, Naishkarmya, and Nirveda. They come here. Okay, so this is how these 6 terms. And so because the Bhagavad-Gita is about Parodharma, it's about rejection of Samanya Dharma and adoption of Parodharma. And that is why all these terms are lying here in the lower part of the drawing. Okay, now just to very quickly map whatever we have said to the few shlokas we did in the last few sessions. 4.12, the 12th shloka. Kangshantaha karmanam siddhim yajante yah devataha Shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. This is what we said in connection with the 12th shloka. And 13th shloka was about Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram aviyam. Shri Bhagavan said, I am the source of these 4 varnas. And in the very last class, we did the 14th and 15th shlokas, right? So now, today, we will quickly do the next 3 shlokas. I will just read the shlokas and tell you the meaning. They are connected to what we have discussed. Here, Shri Bhagavan says, the 16th shloka, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopi atra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajnatva mokshase ashubhat. Kim karma kim akarma iti means what is karma and what is akarma. He's using now a word called akarma, karma and akarma. What these words mean, kavayopi atra mohitaha means even the great kavis. Kavi means a philosopher or a thinker, an intellectual or a scholar. Even a great scholar or intellectual, very learned person, even that person is not able to clearly explain. It's very difficult to understand, or it seems to be difficult to understand. But tatte karma pravakshyami. Now I am going to tell you what karma means. Yajnatva mokshase ashubhat. Once you know that, you will be ready for mukti. Next, 17th shloka he says, Karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha. Akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi. So gahana karmano gatihi. Gahana means very deep. What is very deep? Karmano gatihi. Gatihi means the knowledge or the nature of something. So the nature of karma is very deep. So therefore, you should understand 3 terms. He brings 3 terms here. Karmana means karma, knowledge about karma. Karmano api bodhavyam, karmano hyapi bodhavyam, bodhavyam cha vikarmana. So you should understand what is vikarma. And then akarmanascha bodhavyam. You should understand what is akarma. Karma, vikarma, akarma. 3 terms he brings in. And then in the 18th shloka he says, Karmanya karmayah pashyete, akarmani cha karmayah, sa buddhiman manushyeshu sa yuktaha kritsna karma krite. Says, Karmani akarmaya pashyet, one who sees akarma in karma. Okay, he used 3 terms just now, karma, akarma, vikarma. Then he says, one who is able to see akarma existing in karma and akarmani cha karmaya, one who sees karma existing in akarma. One who sees that there is existence of each of them in the other one. Sa buddhiman manushyeshu, he is an intelligent person among men. Sa yuktaha. Yuktaha means one who is connected in yoga, one who is properly situated. Kritsna karma kriti. Even though he does all karma, he is properly situated. So he is handling all responsibilities, he is doing all his work. He is not neglecting anything. But he is the correct yogi. He is the properly situated yogi. Okay, this shloka, this 18th shloka is a very core shloka to understand karma yoga. This is the translation, what I just explained now. So I will just focus on the 18th shloka now, because if you understand that, then the other 2 shlokas also get subsumed in that. So here, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, he explains the 18th shloka like this. He says, Shuddhanta karanasya jnanavatve api janakadehe iva akrita sannyasasya karmani anushtiyamane nishkama karma yoge akarma karma idam na bhavati iti yah pashyet karmanaha bandhakatva abhavat iti bhavaha. So he says that one who is shuddhanta karana, one whose mind is completely pure, even though he is in jnana, he has already reached the stage of naishkarmya. Naishkarmya means where he is no longer obliged to do his duties. If he doesn't do his duties, he won't get any papa. If he does any duties, he will not get punya also. He is in the stage of naishkarmya. So he gives the example of Janaka, the king Janaka, Sita's mother, Sita's father, Janaka. So Janaka was an example of a person that's given in the 3rd chapter of Gita also, who performed all his duties, even though he was in the highest stage of consciousness. He was fully realized. His knowledge was full. But even then, he said, I will not shun my responsibility of ruling this kingdom. Okay, so I gave the example of Yudhishthira. He is giving the example of Janaka. Akrita sannyasasya. He didn't go and do vanaprastha. Sannyasa here for a Kshatriya, it means vanaprastha. He could have gone and said, okay, now I can retire because I have got the absolute knowledge. These people are all jivatmas having bodies. I don't have to work. But he didn't do that. Why? Because karmani anushtiyamane nishkama karma yoge akarma karma idam na bhavati. He was in the stage of that chitta shuddhi, And he was actually effectively doing akarma. Akarma means there is no punya or papa for the reaction. But externally, he was doing all karma. So you can see that there is akarma present in karma. This is the meaning of akarma present in karma, because bandhakatva abhavat, it won't bind him. Whatever karma he's doing, he doesn't get any punya. If he makes any mistakes, he won't get papa also, which normally happens to somebody who is not pure. Okay, he will get punya or papa, and that becomes binding, bandhakatva. So bandhakatva abhavat means there's no binding for him, there's no bondage for him. That's why there is the presence of akarma in karma. Okay, then he continues, his shuddhanta, tatha shuddha, ashuddhanta karanasya, tatha ashuddhanta karanasya, jnana bhave api, shastragyatvat jnana vavadukasya, sannyasinah, akarmani karma karane, karma yah pashyate. Why? Because durgati prapakam, karma bandhameva upalabhyate, saiva buddhima. So now he says the example of a person who is not pure in his heart. Okay, but he got excited. He said, okay, look, sannyasi means, you sit with a danda, you wear nice, robes, and you can sit and talk. And he has studied, let's say, Vedanta. He has studied the Shastra. He knows everything. Sanskrit he knows. So he says, now I'll take sannyas. I don't want to do my job, because anyway, if I take sannyas, everybody will take care of me. Every time my food will come, everything. I'll just eat, sleep, and talk on Shastra. That's all. Okay, but in the heart, he is not pure. Purification has not happened. So he points out his jnana vavadukaha, means one who talks. Vavadukaha means one who likes to talk. He is very, what do you call, prolific in his talking. He's very skilled. He's got the gift of the gab. Okay, so he can speak and impress people. He can make impressive statements. He can cite Sanskrit shlokas. He can speak in Sanskrit. So everybody's thinking big Swami, and they go fall at his feet. Such a person, he says, actually is getting papa, because he's not pure. He's given up his karma. He's given up his karma. His actual karma was to do all the Panchamaha yajnas. So many yajnas are described in the Shastra. If he's a Brahmana. If he's a Kshatriya, then whatever a Kshatriya has to do. If he's a Vaishya, then whatever a Vaishya has to do. All this karma is defined in the Shastra. And he's supposed to do that. He's not supposed to take sannyas. But he has taken sannyas because he enjoys that. Yeah.
So is this sannyas or changing of profession? Because again, he is not simply living off people's donations only. He is actually propagating knowledge. So isn't this not simply just, there is one thing like, okay, I won't do anything. I'll just simply live off on other people's hard work. But he is not doing it for free. He is also contributing his knowledge. So isn't this not like a change in profession?
Well, in this particular commentary, Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti is referring to sannyas in particular, the actual sannyas, where sannyas is a well-defined process or a well-defined thing. It is not like becoming a speaker on any spiritual topic, like we find today many speakers who speak on spiritual topics. He's not referring to that. Now, that is a completely different thing. That's not necessarily connected to this. Here he's talking about becoming a sannyasi in the framework of the Veda and getting the goal of jnana through becoming a sannyasi. He says such a person will not get that because he's a pretender. Means he doesn't have the eligibility. His mind is not pure. In his mind, he would be still contemplating on the enjoyment. For example, when he is giving a talk, let's say in public, he would be thinking, "Isse kya milega abhi?" The thoughts is there in the mind, right? Somebody will come, they'll give me some gifts, they'll give me some nice food. At the end of this talk, I'll get some nice bhandara will come. I'll enjoy that. So he's not able to free himself from such thoughts because his mind is not yet pure. He has not yet gone through the Chitta Shuddhi procedure. He has prematurely taken sannyas. So in that case, he says, this is the example of karma in akarma. So here the word akarma means a person who has given up his prescribed duties. He's not doing his prescribed duties. He's akarma. He's akarmi. But actually, karma is present there because he gets the fruit of papa. Durgati prapakam is this. Durgati prapakam karma bandham eva upalabhyate natu moksham. He will not get moksha. He will get only karma bandhanam. So maybe he will get some punya also because he spoke on the Shastra and so on. But whatever it is, papa or punya means both are bandhakam. Both are binding you. And he will take birth again. So he says this is the meaning of seeing karma and akarma and vice versa. And Satu Kritsna Karmanyeva Karoti, Natu Tasya Jnana Bhavadukasya Jnani Manina Sangena Pitat Vachasapi Sannyasam Na Karoti iti Bhava. So an intelligent person will therefore not give up his karma prematurely on the path of karma yoga.
I just want to understand. So generally, suppose there's a guru-shishya relationship. Now the shishya always devotes himself to the guru. But is there a duty of the guru also to devote himself to the shishya? Or considering the fact that he is detached from everything, all the material world, should that relationship also be, he should be detached from it? And then suppose he finds some other student, he starts helping them. So he's not attached to anyone specific.
Yeah, so the guru's responsibilities include engaging the student in studying the Shastra and doing other duties. Like, for example, it could be Go Seva or different forms of Seva. Seva is a very broad thing, right? So many different forms of Seva exist. The Guru's job is to engage the Shishya in all those activities without taking anything for himself inside. Internally, he is completely detached. So even when the Shishya offers Guru Dakshina, in his mind, he doesn't take that Dakshina. Externally, because the disciple has to benefit from it, he will say, yes, you can keep it there. And the next person who comes, he will give it to him. So this is detachment.
Because why I was asking this is because again, we see all these people who speak about, let's say the Shastra and things like that, and people follow them. Then they think there's a sense of duty towards those people towards whom they're teaching. And then all the dakshina comes and things like that. But the question is whether they're actually looking for the dakshina. And if they're not looking for it or if they're not attached to it, then they might be doing this for, let's say, a certain period of time. But then they get moved by something and they go into some other form of teaching. So then they never attach to the same thing. So a person who continuously works towards this thing, they themselves have not, let's say, gotten mukti. They're still attached to it.
Yes.
So a true person who is trying to attain, let's say, Shiva Bhagavana, he will never get himself into this sort of a
Yes.
path.
Yes. In fact, a person who is genuine, nishkapat, person who is genuine, will never look for attention, will never look for building a following, will never look for that. Over time, because people may want to learn from him or whatever reason, or help him in some way, so they may come around him, but he will, in his mind. So actually, spiritual progress is not about external thing, it's completely internal. It's internal sculpting or inner engineering, right? You have to work on the inside, and to others, whether you appear pure or impure, what matters is what you really are inside. And that is what takes you to the goal that you want to achieve. Yeah. I'll quickly explain Sri Baladeva's commentary also. He explains in a slightly different way. He says, Anushtiya mane nishkame karmani, yo karma prastutatvat karmani atmajnanam pashyet. So he says, akarma means the stage of getting atmajnana, because that is when we talk about naishkarmya. He talks about akarma in the sense of naishkarmya. The stage when chitta shuddhi has happened, the person has become free from ichcha and dvesha. And he has realized that spiritual knowledge which everybody is aspiring for, which makes him eligible for mukti. He says that is present in karma. It is only through the performance of karma that one goes there. And therefore, karma is the seed for that. It's just like a mango tree is present in the seed, we say. The mango tree, mango seed is not the tree. At the same time, we say it's from the seed that the tree will come. And therefore, the tree is actually present in the seed in some subtle form. By planting the seed, eventually that tree will come out. In the same way, this akarma is present in karma because it's only through the doing of karma that one day that akarma will manifest. That state of naishkarmya manifests. So he says that's the understanding. And similarly, akarmani, atmajnane, yaha karma pashyete, etaduktam bhavati yo, mumukshuhu hridvishuddhaye, kriyamanam karma, atmajnananusandhigarbhatvat jnanakaram. Tacha jnanam karma dvarakatvat karmakaram pashyete. So when you talk about akarma, we say that in that akarma, what led to that akarma is the karma. So when a person has reached the akarma, he sees that in my akarma, that karma is always present. So earlier we said in the karma, akarma is present because in the future it will lead to akarma. So when you reach the stage of akarma, you say that, okay, it's because of all that karma that I did that today I reached here. So he realizes that yes, that karma is intrinsic to this akarma. I cannot separate it. And so he may decide to continue, like Janaka, he may decide to continue doing his karma like he did before, or he may decide to leave and go. Whichever way, he will not say that these two are different things. He says they are implicitly bound with each other. So ubayoho ekatma uddeshyatvat, because the two are closely connected to each other. Ubhayam ekam vidyati ityartha. So Baladeva points out that these two actually should be understood as one, akarma and karma. Evameva vakshyate sankhya yoga prutak balaha ityadina. So there's a shloka in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita that Baladeva now refers to. He says, in the 5th chapter, Sri Bhagavan says, Sankhya Yoga Prutak Balaha Pravadantina Panditaha Ekamapyastitaha Samyak Ubhayor Vindate Phalam. That is, if a person is situated in what is known as Jnana Yoga or what is known as Karma Yoga, they both will achieve the same goal. Actually, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are the same path in two different names. They are not two different paths. They are two different names of the same path. Evam anushthiyamane karmani atma yathatmyam yo anusandhate sa manusheshu buddhiman pandita. One who understands this is a buddhiman. Yukto moksha yogi has a word yukta in the shloka. So yukto krishna karmakrit. Yukta is used in the sense of such a person is eligible for moksha. Krishna karmakrit sarvesham karma phalanam atma jnana sukhantar bhutatvat. So the eventual happiness that comes is implicitly present in karma. This karma, doing the karma today sincerely, eventually leads to that Atma Jnana Sukha. When Atma Jnana is there, it is bliss, it is happiness. And that happiness is implicitly present in karma. So you can see how two different scholars, they were actually knowing each other. Baladeva is much younger to Vishwanath Chakravarti, but they were contemporaries. And they have given slightly different interpretations of the same shloka. And I've created a map to sum this up, just tying it up, whatever we did in the 3 shlokas. Karma, akarma, vikarma. Basic meaning of these 3 words is karma means doing one's nitya-naimittika karma in accordance with Shastra. Akarma, the basic meaning is not doing the nitya-naimittika karma, refraining from it. Vikarma means doing kamya karma. Kamya karma is also in accordance with Shastra, but aiming for specific material returns, specific artha kama. Now, take 3 types of people. Take the first person who lacks Atmagyan. He doesn't have Atmagyan. He doesn't have Chitta Shuddhi. And he does not pursue it. He doesn't know about it. He thinks it's just too high for me or it's too abstract. So he's not interested in it. What happens to him? If he does his nitya-naimittika karma, then he obtains punya. And this is the domain of samanya dharma. Now, if he doesn't do that, if such a person who doesn't have Atmajnana, he doesn't have Chitta Shuddhi, he refrains from that, thinking that, okay, see, that sannyasi, my own brother, he became a sannyasi. I should also follow him. But his brother had Atmajnana, so he went, I don't have, I'll get papa. That is the domain of adharma. And vikarma, if I do vikarma, if the person who doesn't have Atmajnana does vikarma, then he's acting in accordance with dharma. Therefore, he gets artha and kama. Now take the second person who lacks Atmajnana, but he's on the path of yoga. He's now pursuing that Atmajnana as a yogi. He's doing sadhana. He's pursuing. So what happens to him? So if he does his karma, nitya-naimittika karma sincerely, his mentality would be, even though he doesn't have Atmajnana, he doesn't have Chitta Shuddhi, he offers everything to Sri Bhagavan. Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. At the end of the karma, you say. Right? That's one common phrase that we say. Right? What does it mean? It means that I have done my karma very sincerely, but my goal is not the punya. My goal is moksha. And therefore, I give everything to him. Let the punya go to him. And if I do papa, if anything has been done wrongly, by which I might get papa, please forgive me. So there is also what is called as these mantras of Shamaswame, where you please forgive me. You pray for forgiveness. Right? So such a person who is doing this thing sincerely, he will neither obtain punya nor obtain papa.
Can you please repeat that phrase which you just said? about devoting everything you do to Krishna.
Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. So this is one common phrase. There are many mantras like this where you do arpan, you offer. This is what is meant by Bhagavad-arpanam. Arpanam means you do your karma that you're supposed to do all your nitya-naimittika karma, like let's say some yajna that you are doing. Do it. You do your sandhya vandan, for example. And then you say at the end of it, whatever punya is supposed to come to me, I don't want that punya. Let me offer that punya to Bhagavan himself. Let him take it away from me. Why? Because I want something much higher. And that is Atma Jnana, and that is moksha.
Sarvam Krishna.
Krishnarpanamastu. Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu.
This is the song that Krishna.
I'll write it down for you later. Okay, so this is the second type of person who does karma. Now, if he also, such a person, gets excited in between the karma yoga process and prematurely takes sannyas, we just spoke about that, he gets only papa. That is adharma. Okay, and no intelligent person will do that. And such a person will never do kamya karma. He will never do vikarma because he is focused on doing proper karma. So this is not applicable to him. The third category of a person is a person like Janaka Maharaj who has reached Atma Jnana. If such a person does karma, he will also neither obtain punya or papa. And this is what is normally referred to by the name Jnana Yoga. That yoga of that person is called Jnana Yoga. He has done all his nitya-naimittika karma and he is continuing to do it. So he's a jnani. And if he does akarma, if he leaves everything and goes, also no problem because he has reached already that stage. So he will still be called a jnani, but his behavior now will be different. He may go sit in Haridwar or Prayagraj, maybe on the bank of the river and meditate. And he will not be called a mithyacharya because he's already got that Atma Jnana.
He could be still in Mumbai, maybe say working in some finance firm also.
He could still be in Mumbai working in a finance firm, but in his inside, the way he looks at this world will be totally different. Right? He is indifferent to everything. And again, this third thing doesn't apply to him because he is free from karma. So he will not do kamya karma of any kind. Right. So this table that I have made, the 3x3 table, basically sums up what the 3 shlokas that we read now are telling us. Okay, you can go through this later also. My video will be available. If you want my PPT, I can share this PPT also.
The vikarma piece is something that I was a bit unclear about, but in case we can come back to that at some point. Like why those 2 last ones are, especially the last one, like why is that not applicable is something I didn't understand. The very last cell.
Yeah, last 2 cells, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can still understand the second last one, but then I was thinking that at that level, everything evens out and that I'll see something like obtains neither punya nor papa in all the 3. But yeah, so.
It's simply because that person who has attained Atma Jnana will never do kamya karma. He will never pursue kamya karma. Like for example, let's say Ashwamedha Yaga. Ashwamedha Yaga is done by a person who has an objective, right? He wants to conquer more territory or develop some punya which he can use for some purpose. They say that if a Kshatriya does 100 Ashwamedha Yagas, then he becomes Indra in the next birth, right? So a person who is on this path, especially one who has attained Atma Jnana, why will he do kamya karma? He will at least, even if he does it, for example, then he will do it with complete detachment, right? So it is not vikarma, there's no question of vikarma for him. The term vikarma will not be applicable to him. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes. Okay.
For him, it will be an activity of akarma, or it will be in a consciousness where he is not looking for the fruit for himself. He doesn't want anything for himself. He may just be executing a responsibility in that post.
I somehow keep thinking about children, someone who has children, and that person feels that, personally I am, and I've seen some people think like that, but someone thinks that, okay, for myself, I'm good. I'm into, I'm doing my stuff and I don't really look for this thing, for any kind of fruits. But because I have a child, I want that. I want to do a job that earns me money so that I can have his education. And once he is educated or she is educated, then he or she has that decision to think whether that person will pursue whatever.
Yes.
So they want to enable that for the child and make that decision free. And that's why they continue to do the karma, even though mentally they are very, they don't want a lot of things for themselves.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Exactly. That's what we discussed, no? Even in the stage of Atma Jnana or Prema, somebody has
Yes.
Prema also, he will not lose sight of responsibility in society. He fits
Yes.
into society perfectly. He doesn't become a misfit.
Okay. Yeah. That will not be called a kamya karma. That will be called still Atma Jnana, because that person understands. Yes. Okay. I see. So here kamya karma means specifically someone who is working towards pleasing his own senses.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
He does that activity of whatever Ashwamedha Yaga or whatever it is, only for the purpose of increasing his enjoyment. Okay, although in a dharmic way, following the process of dharma. Correct. So I wanted to conclude with this shloka from the Bhagavatam, which very nicely sums up all that we discussed today. It says, Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata mat katha shravanadava shraddhayavan na jayate. This is in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th skanda of Bhagavatam, the 20th chapter, 9th shloka. It's simply saying that, basically contrasting karma yoga and bhakti yoga, the two broad paths of Bhagavad-Gita, says that one should continue to do one's prescribed duties till one attains the stage of nirveda or naishkarmya. So, tavat karmani kurvita. Tavat means until that point. Karmani kurvita, you ought to do your duties. Na nirvedyeta yavata, as long as you have not achieved the stage of nirveda. Or, he says, mat katha shravanadava. That's the alternative. Means if you, alternatively, let's say that you haven't developed nirveda, right? Your chitta shuddhi has not happened, but still, mat katha shravanadava, in my stories, Sri Bhagavan is speaking this. So in my stories, you develop an attraction. You develop an interest. Mat katha shravanadava. Shravanadava also includes Shravanam, Kirtanam, talking about him, seeing his deity, like the example of that Muslim girl and her friend. Va means alternatively. Alternative to Karma Yoga. Shraddha yavanna jayate. Means you have developed Shraddha in me, the Shraddha in this process. If that also happens, then you can stop doing your prescribed duties. And you can do the other duties which are involved in the path of bhakti. When it says prescribed duties, it means specifically the varnashrama duties, the duties of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So you can then do the duties that a bhakta does. The way bhakta lives his life, you can live like that. And you can forget about your varna. So this shloka basically contrasts bhakti and karma. It says that the paths of bhakti and karma are two alternative paths depending on the shraddha that you have. And shraddha is the root of this whole thing. Shraddha is what drives us in one direction or the other. So let me show you the translation as well. This is the translation of the shloka. And for today, I will conclude with this. And if there are any further comments or questions from anyone, we can take or we can close. I'll now chant Shanti Mantra, and please do not chant with me. Om Shanno Mitra Shamvarunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmavadisham Ritamavadisham Satyamavadisham Tanmamavit Tadvaktaramavit Avin Mam Avin Vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. We'll close with this and Punar Milamaha.